Welcome back. In this tutorial, we're going to add arrows to our outline fonts. Now there's a couple of ways you can go about this, but I learned a new trick this week and I wanted to demonstrate that method. And I also would like to credit Eben Sorkin for showing me this trick. He's been a wonderful mentor and taught me so much in a very short period of time. So I just wanted to shout out to Eben. So the first way you can do this is you can basically copy your outline and create another stylistic set. And that will work in most applications. Either way, it's really the same thing that we're going to do. It just depends on whether you want to start with your glyph and then add your arrows to your glyph as a completely separate stylistic set, or you want to do it this new way that I've just learned. And I guess one of the reasons that I want to apply the new thing I just learned is because it becomes relevant a little later down the track when we start adding joins between our semi-cursive to turn them into full cursive. And so it's a good way to just put that into practice. But you can do this either way. I'm not going to copy everything, but if that's what you'd like to do and you'd like to add another stylistic set, you might call this stylistic set SSO4 and pop this in as SSO3 or something along those lines. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this as adding ligatures. To give you an idea what ligatures are usually used for, because what I'm about to use them for is probably not conventional, but we're going to flip over to this font set here. This is a font set that Eben Sorkin is working on, and he showed it to me to give me a demonstration on how to create a cursive font. But it's got some great demonstrations of standard use for ligatures. Anywhere that we see two letters together, for example, like this is the D set, but when the D is next to a Z, there's a ligature set. There's also standard ligatures for I and J when they appear together. The reason there's so many here is because this is covering a lot of languages, whereas the font that I'm working with and showing you is really just plain English language. If you want to narrow it down even further, you can call it Australian language. Because that's the educational environment that those fonts will apply to. So when you see a standard ligature being used like this, it's saying basically, if you look in the features table, it will tell you to substitute, when you see an I and a J together, to substitute it with the ligature. And I'm going to show you an example. Let's put F and I together. So when you put an F and I together, they're a little bit spaced apart. It's a bit more obvious if I highlight them for you. They're a little bit spaced apart, and the designer of this font wanted them just a little bit closer together for the spacing. And so if I now go to the features menu and choose standard ligatures, you'll see it pops them a little closer together. If we turn the ligatures off, you'll see that they're two separate glyphs. It's an F and an I down here. But when we turn the ligatures on, it replaces the F and the I for one glyph. Now it is a single glyph. It's just an FI glyph. That's obviously set up here in the ligatures table as a script. Substitute FI by the FI glyph. So it's very simple. So that's the standard method of using ligatures. The way that I want to use them is I want to add my arrows as ligatures, but the reason I'm doing that is to sort of introduce you to the concept of here, this set of glyphs here in pink. What they are turning what is otherwise a printed font into a joined cursive font. And so it's saying when there's an A and an A together, use this in between, and when there's a B and an A together, use this glyph in between. When there's a C and an A together, use this glyph in between. And we can show this A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. That's probably enough. And then we can show the joins, or not show the joins. So that's what we're going to use to demonstrate adding the arrows, and then later on we're going to use this same model to turn what we currently have into a full cursive script. So back to what we do have. In the first lesson we learned how to add the tails to create our stylistic set 1, our semi-cursive we're calling it, and we also learned how to use the stitcher to create a dotted guide font, which we're calling stylistic set number 3. In tutorial 2 we learned how to turn our ordinary characters into outline characters, which we're calling stylistic set 2. And so today we're going to use stylistic set 2. We're going to add ligatures to create our arrows. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to set up some arrows and my guide dot as a separate glyph, and we're doing that so that every time we use it we've got a consistent size glyph, which is pretty much the same thing that we did here. In order to get all of our dots to be exactly the same size in both our regular and our bold masters, we essentially created a circle, and we used that in the stitcher filter to make sure that every single circle that was put on that glyph were the exact same size. So we're going to do that again, and we're going to create a couple of different types of arrows. I want a straight arrow, plus I want a curved arrow for different fonts, and I'll just show you what I mean. So an A would have a bit of a curved arrow, and so would, a C would probably have a curved arrow. E's going to have an arrow that goes the opposite way and curve in an opposite direction. And then most of our caps will start with a straight arrow. A straight arrow, a straight arrow, a straight arrow. So we want to set up a couple of variations of arrows, and we want to create, so we want a curved arrow, we want a straight arrow, and we want our dots to be the same sizes. So let's add some new glyphs. We'll call this one underscore dot, and then we will create one called underscore arrow. And because I'm going to have a couple of variations, I'll give it a number, arrow 1. And we'll create arrow 2. We'll see how many we need, but I think we'll start with 2 for now. Now we go ahead and create the dot and the 2 arrows that we're going to use. I'm going to fast forward in this video to having created them to save you the pain of watching me do it. Okay, so I've got a couple of arrows now. These 3 here, arrow 1, arrow 2 and the dot. That circle is for the dotted outline. So now we'll start with using arrow 1, which is on a tall letter, so we'll start with that and just show you how to do it. So let's go with, let's choose a B. So right click on the canvas and click add component, and you can see here, because I've already typed an underscore, it's just showing me what everything that I have with an underscore. If you have nothing, you'll get the full list, but I started mine with an underscore so I can find them easily. So I'm going to choose arrow, and then I'm also going to add a dot. Right, so this method I'm showing you is going to be adding your components to your new set of glyphs, your SSO 3 or 4 or whatever number. Assuming that's the way you want to go, you're just adding it directly onto your file and then you're positioning them where you would like them to go. And you might end up with some consistency across the glyph sets, but there we go. As soon as your masters match, obviously they will pop up here with your instances in between. So if you're going to create another stylistic set and simply add your arrows this way, that's the way that you would do it, and they would appear here with the letter. However, that is not how we're going to do it. So I'm going to remove those. Instead, we're going to create a new set of glyphs for all the letters of the alphabet. We'll start with the B again. So let's go new glyph. I'm going to call it B dot arrow. It's up here. So I want to make them green to match the dark green colour that we've got here, so we can keep track of them all. This time we're going to go about it just a little bit differently. If we add it as a component, what that does is that allows us to keep the left side bearing and the right side bearing, and so that any glyphs on either side will still have some spacing. In this case, we actually want to have 0 side bearings and a 0 width glyph, so that we can have no space between them, so it doesn't create a space between our actual letters, and our actual letters still have their usual side bearings. Then this is added sort of over the top of our glyph. So this is how we achieve it. So we'll go and grab the arrow, so I want the tall arrow. So rather than using it directly, I'm simply going to copy it, because I don't want to keep any side bearings from the arrow. I want to have the freedom to change everything. I'm going to make my glyph a 0 width glyph with 0 side bearings. And I copied the regular glyph, and now I'm going to copy the bold glyph. Now what we'll do, we can put the arrow away. We've got a copy of it on our B arrow glyph. We will now open up the B, look at its text. We're going to copy the regular arrow next to the B, because this is just the editor. Remember, we're not actually editing the B. We're in the editor looking at the B, but we're not literally editing the B. We are going to edit the arrow, so we'll move the cursor back one so we can see that we are editing the arrow, and then we'll go back to design mode, and we will move into position. Now we'll copy the dot, doing the same thing, grabbing the regular master dot. It's going on to the B arrow as well, and then we're going to position that where we want it. What this has done is it's given us a 0 width glyph. You can tell because it's just a single line instead of a box, and it's moved it all way to the negative with all that space here as the right bearing. Now we'll have a look at that. That looks about right. I do have components that I use to measure things, but to get technical, but you can also add tools in the plugin manager to measure things. So we're just going to do this by eye just to get the concept down. So that's essentially what we have when the two are overlaid on top of each other. If we have a look out here, our B is still a B and our arrow is an arrow. It's telling us we haven't done our bold master. So let's go over to the bold master and copy the dot from the bold master. Pop that onto this master, and we're going to move it all over to where we want it. Might have gone a bit too big there. So we're going to want it somewhere here-ish. We shall position this sort of a little to the left, but let's position this out here a little. Alright, turn our regular off so we're just looking at our bold. That will do. Okay, there's our regular version and there's our bold version. And so if we look out here, we see the arrow is sitting over here and the B is here without the arrow. So all we've done is applied it in the editor so we could get the left and the right side bearing where it's supposed to be. Now, how do we get those to actually sit on top of each other when we're typing either in the editor or using the font? And it's very, very simple. We're going to go to our font info and we're going to our features tab and we're going to add a feature here. We are going to add a contextual ligature. So if you just type the first two letters, it narrows the list down for you. So we're going to have a contextual ligature, and we've only really worked on the B right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to say sub B SSO2 because we're working on the outline. by, so I still want the B SSO2, but I would like to have the arrow overlaid on top of it. So by putting these together with only a space in between, it's saying to create the ligature, to create two characters in one as a ligature. So using the one character, we're going to create a ligature of two characters or two glyphs. You'll get used to me using the different words. I say letters, characters, numbers, font, when I should be saying glyphs. But there we go. By typing that in very simply, we've created the overlay. So now we'll go and have a look at that overlay. We'll hit the update button to update our features. Now we know that overlay is happening there because we physically made it. So this time we will just grab the B and we will ask it to show us the contextual ligatures. And there it is there. It appears there. Now in the intro to this particular set of tutorials, I showed you how to turn the contextual ligatures on and off in Microsoft Word to show the appearance of the arrows and non-appearance of the arrows. In the next tutorial, we will learn how to use that same concept that we just applied here to create joins between our semi-cursive glyphs to turn it into a full cursive or script font.